Season 1, Episode 1, Skeleton Crew. This could be a real adventure. Grab your blasters, strap in, and let's begin this adventure. I love looking into titles, and you could just already tell this is going to be a fun and exciting episode, which it definitely was. Comment down below if you're a Star Wars fan. Hit subscribe so you don't miss any more awesome episodes, because we're going to go through every single episode of Star Wars Skeleton Crew, and I'm really excited to do a deep dive. Typically with every Star Wars movie or TV shows, you get a little introduction, and this is what the introduction is, and it normally tells a lot of what's going to go on in the episode or foreshadows what could happen and what to keep an eye out for. Since the fall of the Empire, the New Republic has maintained order, and yet remote hyperspace routes have increasingly plagued by piracy. These pirates boldly brand their armored hulls as a sign to all ships, surrender or die. This feels super intense, and it's something to keep an eye out for in this episode. And this episode starts off in space, and from far away you can see a planet, and you could just guess that's going to be the planet that a lot of these episodes might be on or might not be on. I guess we have to really get into the TV show and see what's going on. But a ship appears, and you can also hear sirens going off. So right away you could tell danger, what's going on, and you're instantly so wrapped up in this TV show that is probably only a minute in. I want to know what's going on with these pirates, whose ship this is, what planet that is, because we don't know that much quite yet, and there's only one season out. Then the pirates start boarding this ship, and a mini battle begins. This reminds me of New Hope, when Princess Leia sneaks on the ship and you just see a bunch of people battling and she's like sneaking away. But this was much more dark, because at least in that context, it was light on the ship. This was dark. You could tell that this ship has been messed up. Destruction is going on. And even if they came out of this pirate invasion, I really don't know if this ship would get too far. And maybe that's also why that planet is not too far away. We see someone that seems very important, and his name is Captain Silvo. He appears, and he goes to probably the main guy. We don't get this main guy's name. You could tell right away he's not that important. But he wants to go to the vault. We don't know much about this vault, but we do find out it does have cold, hard credits, which are really important, and this is what the captain says to his team. This is what the whole battle was for, the mini battle, and they're risking their lives for this. But Captain Silvo is trying to get it from the guy who's probably the leader of the ship that they just invaded, and he's like, the New Republic, or the Republic isn't gonna allow this, and pretty much risks his life. You'll see that a lot in Star Wars. They'll just risk their lives. A lot of them are not cowards, so he risked his life because he's like, you're not getting in my vault. There's nothing you're going to find in this vault. So the captain kind of just gets rid of this guy, and they open the vault. There's one coin in there. It's this square credit. I made sure to wear this. It has this symbol on it. You know, it's the rebellion symbol, so I think that's gonna be very important for later on in the episode. And after this, the tone switches. It's more lighthearted, it's more fun, it's more welcoming, bright colors. It's not dark anymore, which I do love this switch up in color tones, because a lot of shows, movies will do this. You could tell what's going on, just like Harry Potter. You can see every movie goes from like lighter to darker, and they want to show this, that it starts off very fun, happy, war. It's kind of the whole summary that Harry Potter all the movies lead up to the big battle at Hogwarts. So anyway, back to Star Wars. The first main character that we meet, his name is Wim. We love Wim. He's a very imaginative kid. We see him playing with little Jedis, and I thought this was really cool that right away we get the feeling of Jedis, because when Star Wars first came out, I feel like that was what it was all wrapped around, was Jedis and Darth Vader, making sure there's no Jedis left, because he's a Sith. He doesn't want anybody else to come for his throne. So I love when Jedis are introduced. But his dad comes in, tells him to come down for breakfast, and instantly we can see this dad is uptight. So right now I'm keying that in, that let's keep an eye out for this dad. You could tell the dad is loving, but very to the point. Something we're probably going to figure out more of a storyline of the dad. What has this dad gone through? But doesn't want Wim playing around much. When he comes downstairs for breakfast, the dad's upset. Why are there toys laying around everywhere? He's a kid. I think maybe 11 or 12, at least something around that age. But no playing around. He's like, get your stuff together. I'm going to be having a lot of long nights at work. Take care of yourself. He gives him some money. It looked like rectangular gold coins, and he said, use this for lunch. I guess the dad will make dinner, but he said, use this for lunch. Not going to be around. Behave. So that's kind of what we see on the dad. I wouldn't say the dad's mean or anything, but very to the point, behave. I'm going to work. I'm working long hours. So far, that's really the summary we get of the dad. And as soon as the dad walks out the door to go to work, as I assume, the son continues playing with whatever toys that he has. And I love this because the dad leaves, the kid starts playing with his toys, and the kid walks out the door, catching the bus, going to school. Obviously, right away, you could tell he's very independent. He is meeting up with his friend, Neil. And as soon as they meet up, they do this mini Jedi battle, which I love because you could just tell this friendship is super fun, lighthearted. I just finished watching Stranger Things. It definitely gave me Stranger Things vibes where they actually show a lot of Star Wars, the Millennium Falcon especially. But it's just a couple of kids having fun, being kids, and being very expressive of themselves. And even when the tram shows up, it's their bus, but it's like a transport that levitates. The kids are just watching them like, what are you doing? Get on the transport. And I just think that's fun when kids don't care, because I think the more they can stay imaginative, the easier they will be to find what they love. And you could definitely tell that right away with Wim, that he doesn't want to fall under typical social standards, that he is going to find and be who he wants to be, which I love that. I love Wim. But they end up getting on the transport. The transport is driven by a droid, which so far I feel like that's something that you're going to start noticing a lot in the episode, is droids do have a large role. Then they get to school, and we could see right away all of the kids are wearing the same uniforms, and I'd call them pretty dull. There was no bright colors. I would say the school just wants you to be very like straight in line, follow the rules, study, don't play around. And we just see them, they get into the classroom, and Wim is sitting, and he is drawing something. We can't really tell what he's drawing, but someone comes in, and he, like, erased what he was drawing right away. And the teacher is also a droid. But this lady who walks in comes up to the front of the class, and the droid introduces her and says, this person is going to be speaking to you today. And we find out that her name is Undersecretary Farah, and even the class repeats it back. Hi, Undersecretary Farah. So you could tell they're very disciplined kids. They know how to respond to adults. They know when to pay attention, and they know when something important is going on. The reason she is here is she wants to make sure everybody is ready for the career assessment. And the first thing she does is she asks around the class, what does everybody want to be? Everybody's saying, I would say like, in terms of, I want to be a mechanic, I want to be an engineer, I want to do things that will help in those types of fields. And she even said that we want to keep the Republic strong and sturdy pretty much. So she wants everybody to go into something like that. But she's like, anybody else want to say who they want to be? Other kids are raising their hands. It seems like everybody knows. But she ends up calling on Wim, who's kind of hiding like we do in classrooms where we're like, don't call on me. And she calls on Wim and wants to be able to protect, defend the people that he loves, people that are around him. And the droid, the teacher, jumps in and was like, we have droids for that. Droids are here for safety. They're here for protection. And the class ends. Right away, we could tell. We're like, you want to be a Jedi, don't you? When they get out of the class, Neil runs up to Wim and is like, why'd you say you want to be a Jedi? He kind of was like, why would you just spill that in front of the class? And Wim's like, I didn't say that. And it's like, well, that's kind of what you're saying you want to be. Then we get to meet the next two important characters, so we're going to keep an eye on them. Their names are Fern and KB, and right away we see them riding on this bike, but it drives like a motorcycle and levitates. It reminds me of pod racing. It reminds me of Anakin Skywalker racing in Phantom Menace and winning and able to escape to go to the Jedi Temple. So I love that. I love when they bring in stuff from other Star Wars movies where fans are like, yes, I'm so happy they brought this in, because I think that's what really keeps the Star Wars experience going, so everything does connect to each other. So I really loved that part. Fern is driving the bike, and right before they get to their destination, it kind of stalls. So she pulls it into the garage, and KB's like, "Aw, not again. Like, you need the power converter." And then kids drive by, and they're like, "Oh, I guess you're not going to be ready for the race." And Fern, she is determined. We love Fern. We could just tell she's her own person. She gets things done. When she has her mind set to something, she is going to finish it. So she's very much leader potential, and you could tell she's very unfazed and probably doesn't get scared much. We could get that a lot from her character right away. And KB, she has these goggles that she puts down, and we're going to give her mechanical vibes. She fixes things. Fern probably breaks the things that KB has to end up fixing. So I love this dynamic. So far, all of our characters, they're so different, but they line up perfectly with each other. Especially in TV shows and movies, it's good to see different characteristics in all of the friends, because each of them could accomplish something that the other person can't. Because if everybody is able to do the same thing and you get into trouble, who's going to solve it if it's one thing that they don't know, if they all know the same thing? But in a group that's very diverse, one person should know what's going on and how to fix it. Then we have Neil and Wim walking home. We didn't see them get on the bus, so they might have got on the bus, got dropped off at the bus stop, but they're walking home, and Neil's house is first. So Neil goes into his house, says bye to Wim, and Wim stops for a second, looks at Neil walking into his house, and is greeted by his, mom, dad. You could tell he has siblings. It's very loud in the house. And I just see a little bit of a defeat in Wim, because so far he only has his dad, which is very interesting because Wim does have all of that imagination, and he probably gets that from his mom. So I think there's something that we're going to find out about his mom that links to Wim, and something with the Jedi. I'm going to put that out there. I have a feeling, because why is he so wrapped up in the Jedi ways and is super creative even when he was drawing in class? So we're going to figure that out as the story goes on. Then the next day comes around, and it starts off as Wim is running behind the school bus and is missing it. And we just see Neil in the background like, come on, you'll make it. Run faster, you'll make it. Which I can't wrap my head around why they can't just tell the droid, hey, stop, my friend is running towards the bus. But they're not able to do that. And Wim goes, I'm going to take the shortcut. Neil's like, what? And Wim's like, I'm going to take the shortcut. And Neil's like, okay. And this is important because they have to take that big assessment test, which I guess if they fail it, they have to repeat the year. And we also find out that his shortcut is riding one of the little pod racer motorcycle bikes, and he is just whipping around through the woods. But again, like Anakin Skywalker, how when he rode, he was able to tell to go left quickly because there was a lot of trees, a lot of obstacles, and he was riding smoothly. Nothing was getting in his way. He was riding it super well, where he has to have some type of instinct. Maybe his mom was a pod racer, but he was doing very well until he gets to the end and a hill drops off and he tries to stop. So he stops, the bike glides, and he rolls off the bike down into this ditch. Then we go over where Neil is, and he's waiting in the classroom. You could tell they have the desk set up for this assessment. The droid is going over like the protocols for this, what to do. And Neil steps up like, hey, by the way, if like someone is late and they're taking some type of shortcut, and the droid's like, sit down. We're not messing with that right now. Like, we have this important test that we need to take. Start preparing. Start going over the questions in your head. Just sit down. And then we fast forward back to Wim, and he sees something, and he starts rubbing it off in the dirt, and he sees some type of symbol, and like this whole episode has been him going over Jedis, and he just loves studying Jedis. He's always reading this like Jedi book. We can't really see what it says, but you know it's about Jedis. Anyway, a droid calls off like, what are you doing down there? Like, you're not supposed to be down there. Come up. And Wim's like, how am I supposed to get up? But anyway, he does. It looks like he's waiting outside of the principal's office. the droid says we're waiting for the proctor to come out and pretty much figure out if you're going to be able to take the assessment or if you're going to get a punishment or whatnot. This is where Wim meets Fern, which I was so excited for them to meet because they're both the leader of their like little friends that they have, and they started talking to each other, and Wim's just waiting for the proctor because he's a little nervous, but they hear the door open and Wim gets right up and goes like, sorry, proctor, and it's his dad. It's his dad, and his dad was not happy, and his dad was pretty much questioning him, and Wim was like, but I found a Jedi temple. He really thinks that thing that he found in the ditch is a Jedi temple, but knowing him and the Jedi knowledge that he knows, honestly, I think I would listen to him. But the dad pretty much was like, come on, let's go. I talked to the proctor. You can take the test tomorrow. But you already start off with minus 50 points. And this is important because if he doesn't get every single question right, he fails the test, which sucks. I'd think about it and I'd be nervous. Even if you're a really good test taker, if you're super smart, you're more than likely going to mess up a question, especially for them. They seem super young. The dad walks out the door and Fern goes to Wim, wait, did you really find a Jedi temple? What do you mean? And Wim's like, no, I was just lying. Like, don't believe anything that I'm saying right now. And just passes it up that I was lying to my dad because I was late for the test and got in trouble. As I said in the beginning, the title could be really important. And the title is, this could be a real adventure. So far, we could diagnose this episode that it is, and there's curiosity involved. Is it a Jedi relic? Is it a Jedi temple? What is it? Because normally you don't just find something buried as important as this in the ground, especially because it was a ditch. It must be something that was buried there for a while or crashed there. So far, those are the different things that are going through my head. After Wim gets in trouble, he goes to Neil's house, he knocks on the door, he makes contact with like one of Neil's little brothers, it looks like, and he points upstairs. So Wim climbs the house and gets to this big glass window and tells Neil like, let's go. So they're outside and Wim is just spewing what has been going on today. Like, I found the Jedi temple. We have to go right now. This is so important. This is an adventure. And Neil is like, you're not even going to ask me how my assessment was. And he also was questioning, well, if you found a Jedi temple, why wouldn't you tell the adults? And Wim said something that I think speaks facts, especially at this age. Don't you want to go on a real adventure? This could be a real adventure. We make up all these fantasies and talk about adventure, but have we ever been on a real adventure that can lead to something? So as he is, they both, as best friends, go and find this relic again, which was pretty easy because it seemed like it was right next to school. And they get back to the relic, and then they hear, it sounds like a droid, like, get out or you'll be terminated. And it turns out to just be KB and Fern messing with them. And Fern was like, this is my find. And Wim's like, no, like, I found this first. And they kind of have a argument back and forth, but you could tell this is about to be a team up. And Fern and KB are like, well, if you want a part of this, then you start dig it and open it up, and then we'll give you part of it. So they get to it, they start digging, and eventually KB, the smart one, as I said, she seems to be super mechanical and knows what's going on. So she could spot the different keys of, okay, this needs to be opened a certain way, and she did. Once they digged a certain bit, she was able to open it. It seemed like she had this like electronic bit to just open it right away, almost like a screwdriver, but something that she was able to have. I want to be able to do it personally, so congrats, KB, because that was really cool. So this ends up opening, and it's really cool. So they're kind of going back and forth, like, who's going to go in? It seems super dark. They have, it looks like 2 flashlights, but all of a sudden they hear in the woods like someone talking, and they find out it's Wim's dad looking for him. So right away we're like, oh boy, Wim is gonna get in big trouble. So they all get into this area and they're kind of looking around. You could tell it hasn't been used in years, and right away they're like, oh my god, a skeleton, which ended up just being a droid. But this droid had its hand on something that looked like a lever, and Fern was like, well, don't pull it, don't touch it. And Wim was like, don't worry, I wasn't going to. And then it looked like a spider popped out of the droid's eyeball, and they moved really fast, which caused the droid to pull the lever down, which closed the hatchet that they came from. So now they're stuck. And as I said, it seemed like this thing has been down there for a while, spider webs, dusty, and I think the kids are pretty worried at this point. So they're trying to figure out, what do we do? But as I said, it's good. They're very diverse. So KB's like trying to find the wiring and figure out, how can we turn these lights on? Like, there has to be a way we can get the power on. It's the only way we can get out. And then we have Wim, who's like, it's a Jedi temple. There should be many exits. Like, they always have hidden exits to get out of these sort of like situations. Which at this point we're like, is he just daydreaming that this is like a Jedi temple? But who knows? Anyway, KB follows this wire down to this little compartment she picks up. So they're going even deeper down. So KB goes down it, Fern goes down it, and then we have Neil about to go down it, and Wim's like, Neil, like, stay with me. You're going with the girls. And Neil's like, I just want to get home, which is real. We just want to get home. So he follows the girls down, and really he can't jump down. We see him just levitating from this because it is a far drop. It looks like a 15 feet drop maybe. And the girls are down looking at the different compartments to see what they can hit to turn everything on. And they do end up hitting something that turns the lights on in this. And they start questioning what it is, as Wim is upstairs and he figures out it's a ship that they're in. And it's not a temple, it's a ship. So this is super important. And they're yelling up to Wim, don't hit anything, because all the lights just came on, all the buttons are going, and there's just this one button blinking on and off. And we could tell, I'm looking at Wim and I'm like, you're ready for an adventure, aren't you? And he hits that blue button. You could feel that it starts moving because it's a ship buried underground. So it starts moving and it goes back to where like the actual level ground is. And we see the ground starts caving in as the ship starts coming up. And the dad is like, what is going on? And at this point, the door does open and they're running up because they're down in that basement level. So they're running up. And they go up the door, but at that point, the ship has raised at least 50 feet above the ground, and the dad can see them, and Wim's waving like, Dad, and he's waving Wim, and the ship is starting to lean, and now we have Wim hanging, and all of his friends trying to, like, pick him up, and eventually they pick him up, they close the hatchet, and then they go to look outside, and they just see stars. And Fern first was like, are those planets? And Wim was like, Wim or Neil said, no, they're stars. And that's pretty much how the episode ends. Super intriguing. It was very fast paced. I was really ready for it to be a Jedi temple. But at the same time, the episode began with the ship. And what was going on in my head is, where is that ship? And when he found this symbol, I'm like, that has to be the ship. Because why would they show that in the first place? But I think a lot of growing up has to do exploring, and we could see they're young kids. They want to go out. They're like, I'm as brave as adults. I could accomplish what adults could accomplish. Now that the first episode ends, we're trying to figure out who the characters are, what their arc is going to be. Now we have Neil, who's a smart friend, constantly talking about school, constantly worried. So he's the cautious friend. And then we have KB, who is super smart, intelligent, also like Neil. So I think they'll be able to pair up a lot, which I like that they could connect on those two levels. And I bet one day there'll be something KB is trying to figure out, and she just is missing one part of the solution, and Neil jumps in. I bet that's going to be something. They're going to work together. I just know it. But KB, she's very intellectually smart and driven with like mechanics. So that's her expertise. I'd say she's the tech savvy one and fixed the ship pretty much, which Wim ended up just taking it away. And then I'd say Wim is the creative and adventurous one. He's always up for exploring, but he's also the one that is more than likely going to be getting this group in danger a lot. I just have a feeling he's going to be the one getting them in danger, just like he did in this first episode. A lot of those things typically foreshadows throughout episodes, like movies or TV shows. How it begins is how it ends. We'll see. And then we have Fern the Fearless. She just knows who she is. She sets her mind on something and she is going to complete it. But after they started going up into space, all I started thinking was, is she going to make it to that pod race? I assume it's a pod race. They just called it a race, but I guess we'll see. it's really cool that they're leaving their very safe planet. As we saw, they didn't really they're out for adventure in their planet because there's nothing to do. That's how I think they just have a very simple life. They go to school, they study, they wear the same outfit every day, they wear matching outfits. There's not much room to stand out in this planet of theirs. That's what they're setting out to do. I really loved this episode. I think this was a really good start to the season, and I cannot wait for episode 2. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe for more. Follow along. We have a lot of Disney content, travel news, and pretty much anything travel, and lots of Star Wars. A lot of Star Wars content will come in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching.